Silence is not just the absence of words, it is a deliberate choice that communicates volumes about a person's intentions, priorities, and emotional investment. When someone chooses not to call or message, it may appear as if nothing is being said, but in reality, silence often speaks more clearly than words ever could. In human relationships, especially in moments where communication is expected, the decision not to reach out signals where someone stands and how they view the connection. People often like to believe that silence is neutral, that perhaps the other person is busy or distracted, but repeated patterns of silence rarely come from nowhere. Instead, they reveal where energy and effort are truly being directed. If a person genuinely values you, communication becomes natural and instinctive, not something that requires reminders or excuses. It is tempting to rationalize the silence, to fill in the blanks with your own explanations. Maybe he's tired, maybe he had a long day, maybe he's simply not good with phones. But in the modern world where communication is easier than ever, silence is less about inability and more about unwillingness. Everyone makes choices daily about how they spend their time and who they connect with. A person who doesn't take a few seconds to check in or show that you are on their mind is making a choice that says a lot about their priorities. Silence in this way is not a gap, it is an answer. What makes silence so powerful is that it can create an emotional ripple effect. On the receiving end, you may feel doubt, confusion, or even self-blame. You might wonder if you said something wrong or if you're expecting too much. But the truth is that silence is a form of communication that puts the responsibility back where it belongs, on the person who chooses not to engage. It isn't your role to decode or justify it endlessly. Instead, it is your role to listen carefully to what silence is saying, because it often tells you more about a relationship's reality than any spoken words could. Furthermore, silence reflects intention. When someone truly cares, they overcome barriers, no matter how small or large, to make sure you feel connected. A single message, a quick call, a thoughtful reminder that you matter. These are not burdens, they are gestures of respect and affection. When these gestures are missing, it indicates that connection is not a priority. Silence is not just about not speaking. It is about withholding, whether consciously or unconsciously. It is about choosing not to bridge the gap, not to close the distance, not to reassure. And that choice should not be ignored or minimized. Ultimately, communication is always a choice, and silence is one of the clearest forms of it. It is not your responsibility to twist it into something more comforting. When someone doesn't call or message you, they are telling you something without words. Believe it or not, that silence is the message. It is a reminder that energy should be reciprocated, and where it isn't, you deserve to step back, listen, and honor yourself enough to accept the truth behind the quiet. Emotional availability is one of the foundations of healthy connection, and it is often revealed not through grand gestures but through simple acts of consistent communication. When someone doesn't call or message, it's easy for them to offer explanations. They were too busy, too tired, too stressed, or simply forgot. At first, these reasons may sound valid, and occasionally they might even be true. But when silence becomes the pattern, when you are left repeatedly waiting for attention or reassurance, it stops being about excuses and starts being about emotional availability. People who are emotionally present make time to show up, no matter how small the gesture. People who are emotionally unavailable hide behind justifications, creating distance that words alone cannot bridge. What is most striking about emotional unavailability is that it isn't always intentional. Some people genuinely don't know how to communicate their feelings, or they struggle with intimacy, vulnerability, or commitment. Yet regardless of the reason, the impact remains the same. Silence leaves the other person feeling unseen, unvalued, and disconnected. Excuses may soften the edges of this absence, but they do not erase it. A person who continually defaults to "I was busy" or "I didn't have time" is really saying, in unspoken terms, "You are not a priority right now." It may not be cruelly intended, but it is the reality communicated. When someone is emotionally available, their behavior reflects it. They don't need to be reminded to check in. It comes naturally because caring feels instinctive. They want to share their world with you and invite you into theirs. Even on the busiest of days, a simple message or quick call becomes a sign of thoughtfulness. On the other hand, when someone is emotionally closed off, silence becomes the default. And instead of acknowledging that, they often use excuses to mask the gap, making you question whether your expectations are too high. But the truth is, meaningful relationships are built on mutual effort. It is not asking too much to want to feel valued through consistent communication. Excuses also serve another purpose. They keep the other person from having to take accountability. If someone can claim they were too busy, then they don't have to face the discomfort of admitting they didn't prioritize the relationship. This allows the cycle of neglect to continue, often at the expense of the other person's peace of mind. Accepting excuses at face value can keep you trapped in uncertainty, hoping for change that rarely comes. Recognizing the difference between a temporary reason and a repeated pattern is essential. At the heart of it, emotional availability is not about having unlimited time or energy. It is about willingness. A person who is truly open will find ways, however small, to connect. Excuses, no matter how convincing, highlight a lack of that willingness. Silence covered with justification is still silence, and it signals that someone may not be capable of meeting your emotional needs. Understanding this distinction allows you to stop waiting for excuses and start listening to the truth behind them. If he doesn't call or message, it isn't about the reason he gives, it's about the reality of how available he truly is. Respect and priority are the cornerstones of any meaningful relationship, and they cannot be compromised if you want a connection that truly nourishes you. When someone consistently fails to call or message, it often reveals a deeper truth about how they see you in their life. It is not simply about being forgetful or having a busy schedule. It is about whether you matter enough for them to make space for you. Respect is shown not in words alone, but in the consistency of actions. If a person says they care, yet repeatedly leaves you waiting, wondering, or questioning, their silence becomes a form of disregard. Being treated as an afterthought chips away at your self-worth, because at its core, respect is about acknowledgement and priority is about choice. Everyone has responsibilities, challenges, and commitments. Life is busy, but even in the busiest of times, people make room for what they value. A quick call, a short message, or even a gesture of acknowledgement can demonstrate that you are still on their mind. When someone doesn't make that effort, it shows where you fall on their list of priorities. This can be a difficult truth to face because it forces you to recognize that you may be investing more into the relationship than they are willing to give. But understanding this is vital because settling for less than respect and priority will leave you in a cycle of frustration and disappointment. The reality is that respect and priority are not luxuries in relationships. They are essentials. To respect you means to value your time, your feelings, and your presence. It means showing consistency rather than offering excuses. To make you a priority means to choose you, even when life gets complicated, even when energy is low, and even when other obligations compete for attention. These choices do not require grand gestures or constant communication, but they do require intention. They require that the person makes the effort to show up in ways that count, because a relationship without respect and priority will always feel unbalanced. When these non-negotiables are missing, silence becomes not just an absence of words, but a form of dismissal. It suggests that your needs are secondary, that your presence is taken for granted, or that your emotions are not worth the effort of reassurance. That kind of silence erodes trust and creates a one-sided dynamic where you are left doing the work of holding the connection together. Over time, this imbalance becomes heavy, leaving you feeling unworthy of attention when, in reality, it is the other person's inability to give respect that is the issue. To honor yourself, you must hold firm to the truth that respect and priority cannot be bargained away. They are not negotiable terms of affection. They are the very foundation of it. If someone cannot meet you with these essentials, their silence is already the answer you need. Choosing to recognize that truth is not about bitterness, but about dignity. It is about refusing to shrink your needs to fit someone else's lack of effort and embracing the understanding that you deserve consistency, care, and priority without having to beg for it